I've got a confession to make.
I need to get this off my chest. As a business owner, we all make mistakes.
I've got to confess.
Hey guys, it's Charlie from Confessions of a Business Owner here, and today I am joined by Diana Tower, and we are doing part 3 in this interview series. So if you haven't already, please go and check out part 1 and part 2, which were phenomenally awesome, although I might be a touch biased there. But this time we are covering something very important. So in part 1, we covered for everyone that is running a community or running a group, we really attacked things from the perspective of, what does it take to run a great community? In episode 2, we went deep and almost, and almost don't want to say this word on the podcast, but philosophical we went. It was a really deep episode about how relationships and things have had a tremendous impact on your life and my own. And then in this episode, in part 3, we want to tackle things from the other side and talk about how you can be a great member of a community or group. And I think there's some powerful things we're going to cover. So Diana Tower, how are you doing?
I am so excited to be here for round 3, and I'm so excited to dive into this topic. I think this is such an important kind of subject that people just don't really think about. They're just haphazardly join a community, get going. And I think that there's a lot of thought that can be put into that.
Yeah, definitely. And from my own perspective, when I think about this, when people join my community, the association, some members get a lot out of it and some members get less out of it. And even if we encourage them and do other things, I would love for them to be thinking about these things so everyone gets the most out of it in any other community they have joined. And have you noticed the same thing?
Yeah, I think that with communities, it really is what you make it. So it's it's not that the community is amazing. I mean, obviously there's a lot of things that we can do as community hosts and community managers to engage people and make it really welcoming and make the experience awesome from day one. But it also really depends on you. It's like, if you don't put anything into it, or if you don't make an effort, you're not going to get a lot out of it, or it's really going to limit and lower sort of the value that you can take from it. But also it's not even like the value that you're taking from it. It's the value that you're adding to the community, because that's really what it is. It's about people adding value to the community. It's like giving before, taking, or even just the idea of paying it forward. I really loved, what was it, that movie ages ago with Kevin Spacey, Pay It Forward. This idea, it's like you help 3 people. And so I sort of think of it help 3 people and then ask for help. And if everybody does that, you're going to have an amazing community.
Yeah, I certainly think it sets up for success if people have that mindset. If everyone's trying to help 3 people, then there's more help than take. And ultimately that creates a thriving community. So I think that's a great way to tackle. And almost I wish I could drop my microphone, but I can't. It's on a stand. But the mic drop moment number 1.
You need to buy a mic just so you can be
surely I can get a sound effect for this or have it edited in later. I'll talk to the guys. We'll see after.
Boom. Love it.
But how I want to tackle things, and I thought we're going to stick to our questions this time.
Yes.
What's really interesting when we do an interview, Diana, is we manage to talk about so many things and even veer off track to the point in episode 1, we didn't even get to your confession on Confessions of a Business Owner because we got so into the community stuff. So I'm going to be strict today. I've been told that we've got to be in a straighter line, but nonetheless, I think there's some awesome things to share. So how I want to open this up, because I think this is, the foundation of really doing well in a community, is how do you start well into a community?
I think, that's a fantastic question. So for anybody that is just joining, either it's a membership community or it's a community that goes along with a course, there's a lot of emotion going on. If you imagine yourself, it's okay, you just joined this program or you're signed up and you're in there, and there's this feeling of, actually the way I described it is arriving to a wedding late. And so it's everybody is mingling and having drinks and chatting at the bar and maybe having nibblies over here, and you're standing kind of at the entryway and you're shit, everybody knows each other, everybody is having a great time, and how do I jump in? How do I like make a good impression, or how do I not feel super, super uncomfortable like on the sidelines? And so I would say like when the first thing that you need to do, figure out what is and is not okay. So like if you know that you're not allowed to, for example, dance on a table at a wedding, maybe you shouldn't make that your first move. You're like, hey, everybody, I'm going to jump up here and like dance. Like, you need to know what's okay and like what isn't. So like the culture of the community. So like the number one thing first is read the guidelines. It sounds so basic, and I think that people really take it for granted. Obviously, the onus is on the host or the manager to like make sure that there are actually good community guidelines in place that are clear and that kind of describe what is and isn't okay here. But I think that people sort of just say, oh yeah, like I'll just be like a normal human being, I'll be like good, I won't be self-promotional. They just sort of think that in their head, but they don't actually take the time to read the guidelines. And that's like the first thing I would do, is just sort of be like, okay, look, this is what is okay here, this is what isn't. This is the type of things that I can do. Like, so for example, if it is a community for business owners, maybe there's a certain way that you can share about what you do. Maybe you're not allowed to share links. Like, you don't want, for example, imagine if you're not allowed to share a link to your website, and in your introduction, you share a link to your website. You're sending a message not only to the host of the community, but also the other members, that you didn't actually care enough to read the guidelines, or that you think that you're above the guidelines. And so it's actually twofold. So like the host of the community, you're making more work for them. So now it's not just me or like whoever it is going in and welcoming you. It's that awkward situation of like, hey, it's so great to have you here, but can you delete that link? Because actually here are the guidelines. We don't do that here, right? So you're making more work for the person, which kind of sucks. But then also for everybody else in the community, it's like everybody else understands the rules, and they're just kind of like it just kind of creates that feeling of like, why didn't you take the time to read the guidelines? Or maybe they feel like they need to step in or say something. So it just creates kind of that a little bit of tension. So that's like the number one thing, is to avoid things that are blatantly like clear in the community guidelines that you're not supposed to be doing. So that's like the first thing I would say, like look at the community guidelines and get a gist of what is and isn't okay there. And then the second thing is, you need to break the ice somehow, right? You need to like get in there and like go to the bar and order a drink, or you need to talk to someone. And so in a community, there's some ways that you can break the ice. And normally there's going to be like an introduction thread or an introduction section, so you can kind of introduce yourself. This can be a little bit intimidating though sometimes, because we start to think, well, what do I write? How do I make the best first impression? And so what I generally like to recommend is actually just go and like comment and reply to other people. So what happens is, imagine somebody asks a question and you can actually add some value. Go and just reply and answer that. And you can even say like, hey, I'm new here, but this is what I would think. And so you kind of sprinkle yourself a little bit around the community. And so people start to kind of think, oh, this person's new. Oh, they're answering some questions, or they're just offering encouragement. They seem really, nice. You're slowly easing in, right? And then when you introduce yourself, people will actually kind of know you already. And that's actually a really good point as well, because when you introduce yourself, people probably will be more likely to say, hey, it's so great to learn more about you. Thanks so much for your help over here. It's not just like completely new person introducing themselves that hasn't really taken the time to kind of add to the community yet. So I would say that that's a really great way to sort of balance the, like having it be kind of, what's the word? My brain just went by. Intimidating. There we go. So like that intimidation of, okay, how do I introduce myself, and how do I make myself sound amazing, and like how do I connect with people? Because that's really what's going on. It's like you want to be accepted, at least from the person that's joining. And then also, make it easy for people to kind of connect with you, and not just about the one main thing that the community is about. Like, so for example, if it's a business community, don't just talk about your business. Talk about your hobbies, talk about your interests, talk about weird stuff that people will remember, so that it opens up like a conversation that's not just focused on one thing. So, if you, for example, if you are like James Gramco and you go surfing every day, talk about that. Maybe share a picture. If you have a weird hobby, or you love hot sauce, or you just read an amazing book, or anything like that that's different and unique, pop that in, because it's going to make it easier for someone to be like, oh my God, I love hot sauce too. Or there's going to be that conversation that's going to happen like a human, like a real human, because that's what you want to do. Like whenever you join a community, just think about what you would do in a real human situation. Like at a wedding, what would you do? You'd walk up, you'd introduce yourself, you'd compliment someone on what they're wearing. So like that's kind of what you're going to want to do when you first get into a community.
Yeah, I like a lot of points there, and you've nailed some things that you probably didn't even know about me that have worked. So it's funny that, like, I'm a cyclist, a very keen cyclist. So I always put that in the comments, because I know if another cyclist is in a group, we're gonna get on, we're gonna be buddies. So it's like a
Totally.
little, yeah, the connection points past the actual thing is really cool.
That's actually something that Jason Gaynard talks about, the uncommon commonalities. So it's like when he does like mastermind dinners. And so this idea of, if you share, for example, this is really funny. So his wife, Candace, at this event that I went to, she had this bottle. Okay. And I just got this yesterday, so I'm very excited. This water bottle actually tracks how much water you drink. It has like a sensor in it, and it has reminders to get you to drink more. And I've wanted this bottle forever, but you can't send it to Spain. It's only Canada or the States. And so I was kind of like, oh, it'd be nice. And then at this event I was at with her, I saw her with the bottle, and I almost freaked out. I was like, oh my God, it's a, I went over, I was like, oh, we started geeking out about this bottle. And I was asking her like, oh, does it actually help you? Do you drink more? And, so we just kind of connected on this bottle. And I then right afterwards, like ordered it. I had it sent to my sister in Canada. She just sent it to me. I just got it yesterday. And so it's an uncommon commonality. It's something that you would never think that you would connect with, like a water bottle, but it changes it, because, now I want to, I'm going to send Candace a message and say, hey, I got my bottle. It's amazing. So it's something that you can connect with people over that you wouldn't expect. And I think that if you can incorporate that as like a community provider, but also as just yourself, like mention weird stuff. Like I have this, I have a skateboard. Everybody asks me about this skateboard, and behind me, and if it's not there, because sometimes my son will steal it, people like ask about the skateboard, like, oh, where'd the skateboard go? What's going on with the skateboard? So it's just even having things to talk about makes it easier for people to connect.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that's overlooked. And even looking back on my own experience, as I've said, that's been things that have become connection points and conversations and friendships. So I think there's a few things there. We've got to loop back in. Number one, I really liked the idea of commenting on other people's threads and being helpful in the beginning, because it allows you to kind of get into those clicks and conversations involved in other things. And I would even say if your community has group calls or anything like that, like you've got to make an effort to be there in those initial ones, especially to get
Yes.
over that hump.
100%. That's actually a really good point. If there's any sort of live element where you're actually engaging with other people, do that and do it consistently. So, I mean, imagine like there's coaching calls that you can get on. I would be choosing one of those calls every week, and I would be going, because what's going to happen is maybe there's going to be, say, 5 or 10 people that always go at the same time, at the same day, and you're going to form a more kind of tight knit relationship with them, because stuff's going to happen on the coaching call. They're going to say something. There's going to be an inside joke. There's going to be something. And then you're going to pull that into the community, and you'll maybe bring up the joke, or you'll poke fun at someone, or you'll share a meme. So, that I think is so fundamental. And actually just from getting value of the program, like take advantage of everything that's being offered. If there's a community, like be in that community. If there are live calls, go on the live calls. If there's, anything that's being provided, really assess how you can incorporate it into your schedule. And that's actually a really good point too, as well. Like whenever you start something, if it's a course, if it's a program, a membership, put it in your calendar. Like sit down and say, all right, here's the live call. It's going in my Google Calendar. All right, when am I going to participate in the community? Like even potentially scheduling a specific time to kind of go in, because that way you're not going to feel overwhelmed. Like, because sometimes what will happen is people will just be in there all the time. They kind of just start geeking out and they're always in there. And maybe it's can be better to be a little bit more strategic and say, okay, I'm going to go in for half an hour every day, or I'm going to go in Monday, Wednesday, Friday for an hour. Like just sort of being a little bit more, I would say, organized with that. It can help it sort of become a part of your life.
Yeah, you like forming those habits. I really like that as well. I mean, again, for myself, it's like I make sure I routinely in the same time slot every day do community stuff, and it's incredibly powerful for those types of things. But as a community member, so obviously I have a community puts me in a different bracket. But if there was people in the community doing that, I imagine they would see dramatically more results from the community. So I'm looking back a little bit and go, wow, I've definitely not done that in prior experiences, and I can see how that would have been a much smoother entry and getting over that I'm the new person or this is new type of thing incredibly quickly.
Yeah. And I think that that's one of the biggest things too, is because we label ourselves like a newbie. It's like, I'm new here. And it's like you want to like transition from that feeling to like accepted sort of member as quickly as possible.
Definitely.
If you can do that in like a week, if you're like on the live calls, you're, chatting with people. Actually, this is a thing. Okay, so one thing that I did, and this is actually how probably I ended up getting my first major client with Ramit Sethi, was when I joined his accelerator program. I asked what could I do to get the most from the program, and actually, Primaj Bajik, he was the manager at the time, and he said, just connect with other people, like hop on calls with them. And I said, okay. And so I think I sent out like 40 or 50 private messages to like people in the group. And all I said was, hey, I'm new in the program. Primaj recommended that I reach out to people. I saw it. And this is something that you want to do as well, like something specific about them. You do not want to just like copy and paste a template and like send it to 50 people. But it could be, imagine like I see that you're into cycling and I say, hey, I saw that you're into cycling and, I'm not really a cyclist, but I'm always curious about what it's like to be in a race. I'd love to, just hop on a quick call and just kind of get to know you better and see what you're working on. And then putting a link, what I normally do is put like a Calendly link or some sort of scheduler so they can just click on a link, grab a time, and literally it can be like 10 minutes or 15 minutes. And so I didn't think many people would reply, but I actually ended up Skyping with, I think, 20 people in a week. And because it was just like, okay. And so, but the thing is though, is I was able to go literally from like total newbie to like, oh my God, I have like 20 friends in this community who have all these different cool expertise. And it was just amazing to it was like 0 to 60. It was amazing. And I felt really connected. And it was just really nice to hop on calls with people and see like what their strengths were, so that for future reference I could say, hey, I'm going to ask Andy about WordPress because he's a WordPress ninja. Or Camille, she's really great at relationships and dealing with difficult situations. So what I would do is kind of like mentally file that away for future reference. But then what was even more important was just saying like, how can I help you? So if somebody's struggling with writing, or somebody's having kind of a mindset issue, or somebody just wants to talk about what's going on, I was like, hey, give me a call. Let me know. Let's hop on a call, or let's, talk in the community. And so it was amazing to kind of just really form those real relationships and friendships. This is the thing too. I think that people get confused with, joining a community and like networking and this sort of thing. I think what people need to really do is switch their way of looking at it and just say that they're making friends. Like you're going into a place and you're actually like, make some friends. And if you do that, like from a perspective of like a community member, you're going to feel amazing. You're going to get massive value. You're going to be helping other people. They're going to be helping you. And then like from the other side, like from the community host, if you have a group of friends that you're kind of bringing together, that is so much more powerful than just like, oh yeah, like I have members, like they're connecting or they're it's very different. Like friendship, that is like emotion that is real.
Yeah, I think you're almost creating the like contagious network as well, like where people's reason to stay in a community isn't just for the course or the host or whatever it is. It's actually the other members of the community. And I tell you
Yeah.
what, I'm thinking about this as well, is that if you've done the points you've said so far, so, come in like it's a wedding and not danced on the tables, checked the community guidelines, and then you're actively commenting on other people's things and getting involved in whatever the actual group is running. But to kick it up a gear, I really think that there's something very clever in starting well, which is reaching out to other people in the community, high touch, not template, as you've said, and
Yeah.
actively having a call with someone to get those bonds and friendships and things started and real relationships.
Yeah, I think that like probably what a lot of people will be thinking is no one will want to talk to me. Why would like this is weird. They're going to think I'm scammy or that I'm trying to do something, right? Because a lot of people have insecurities about reaching out to people. And this applies to doing like customer research as well. So it's like people don't want to like ask it on a call with someone because like, oh, I'm going to be selling something or scammy and they're going to think I'm weird. And it's like, well, if you don't do that, if you just go into it purely because you want to connect with someone or talk to someone, it can be amazing. It's such an amazing tool. And, just, taking the time to find something that's personal about that person, writing them a message, and then just hopping on a call with them. I think that that's something incredibly powerful that a lot of people will either overlook or they're just scared to do it. And I would say like for anybody that's scared to do that, like just message 5 people and test it, or do what I did, message like 30 people and don't like take away kind of that like, oh, I have to get on calls with people. Just like like send some messages to people and then see what happens. And if nobody replies, then maybe take a look at what you wrote, because maybe there's something weird in there, because that sometimes happens. We think, oh, this is totally a normal message, and then somebody else will read your message and it's like, holy crap, like were you trying to sell something? You sound a little bit weird, like this makes me feel awkward. Like
Creep factor.
get somebody else, right? If nobody replies to your message, there's something weird with the message. So like get a friend or somebody else to look at it and just be saying like, is this message weird? How does this message make you feel? Because again, it's all about the feelings.
Well, I'll even go a step further. It's quite interesting when you have a podcast, the amount of people that will reach out to you that want to be on the show. And I have to put it out there. I think you actually did it best in the way you contacted me, because you used that exact formula, and that you got to skip the queue amongst other people. I won't name names, but it's like the amount of people I get going, hey, you've got a podcast. Can I be a guest? All about me. And they start pitching themselves, and it's like, okay, we get a lot of that. But then your approach is you actually watched an episode or liked the page and then commented on one of the episodes as that icebreaker, and it worked incredibly well. And I was impressed you went to such effort to understand the show before asking to be a guest. And I was like, well, she's much more fitted to understand why she's a good fit. And probably why you ended up with several episodes as well, by the way.
Well, and it's interesting as well too, because initially, here's the thing. Initially, when I first I heard about your podcast, I didn't think about coming on the show. What happened was I was like, oh, this would be great to share in another community that I'm in. So like adding value to this community. So this idea of like, oh, I'm going to share this opportunity. And it was like, I was just trying to help people. It was like, okay, I'm going to help these people over here. And then, I message you and it's like, hey, Charlie, I just wanted to let you know I shared your podcast. Sounds like a great opportunity. You should be getting some more, pitches in or this sort of thing. And so I think it's hilarious because like my intention initially wasn't even to get on the show. And so I think sometimes what people don't realize is that when you try really hard for something, it actually can have sometimes the opposite effect. So like, for example, when you go into a community and you're like introducing yourself and you're dropping a link to your website and you're talking about your offer and you're doing this and this, and it's like people can smell it. Like, it's just like stop focusing so much on your business and trying to like promote yourself and just be a person. Because that's the thing as well. Like when you're in a community and you're offering value and you're helping people and you're not talking about yourself and you're not talking about your business, what are people going to do? They're going to creep your profile. They're going to be like, what is this person doing? What are they up to? And so they go into your profile. Oh, look at this. This is their website, or this is what they do, or this is how they help people. Interesting. If it applies to them, great. If it doesn't, they might share it with someone else. But I think that that's another really important thing, especially as, communities with entrepreneurship and businesses, like stop focusing on yourself and just help other people. Be a really awesome human being. And that will actually attract probably more business or more opportunities for you than if you tried to kind of like sneak it in. And like, I think that's actually probably one of the biggest things as well. Like in terms, I'm with community guidelines, obviously it depends on what the community allows, but like stop trying to promote yourself, like period. I think that like that, if people just stopped trying to like get, promote themselves, they would actually promote themselves so much more.
That almost ties in really well to this next part here I wanted to discuss, which is like the must not do's when it comes to a community. And I think you've already nailed, I'll give you one, which is the self-promotion side of things. It's almost ironic. If I said to you, look, let's get in a car, we want to go forward, but you need to go backwards to do that, you'd be like, you're an idiot. And I'd be like, fair enough, fair enough. But in the community land, if you want to get the most out of the community, you actually have to give. And that's a massive irony that people seem to be a little bit lost on.
Yeah. I would say like number one, don't share links to your shit. Like that's it. Boom. Like don't do it because, okay. So here's from several different perspectives. As a community manager, literally what happens when I see that is like, you're making more work for me because either A, you're breaking a guideline. So now I have to message you privately or publicly and say, hey, can you remove that link? So I'm, you're making more work for me, which is exhausting. But then also for other people, it's like self-promotion. Don't people read the guidelines? And then also other people are waiting for the team to jump in. And then what happens if the team doesn't jump in? That's then sending a message to the rest of the community. So you have to jump in, everybody, by the way. But then also for you as a person, here's the deal, right? If I write a post and I'm just slipping in a link, it's like, I know that it's wrong. Like there's, it's like, well, I'm just going to put it in. And if it's a problem, I'll delete it. If you have to write that in a message, if this is a problem, please remove, just don't post it. Just don't do it. Because obviously there's a gray area. Just don't do it.
It's a really interesting one. So personally in my community, I don't have a rule that you can't post links. I'll actually let people post links because if people are, if it's suited, then that's fine. And I know I'm exposing myself to risk in doing that. But nonetheless, I've found the community has self-regulated that really well. But one thing I will say that's made a huge difference is I have a member directory. So if anyone wants to look up another member, it's really easy to see their website or anything if they want. So I almost feel like I've filtered the need for people to continuously self-promote because it's available, if that makes sense.
That's totally makes sense. And that's the thing too, because it goes back to what are the guidelines? If you're allowed to post links to your stuff, great. But a lot of times there's a lot of groups where it's like, okay, we're not, don't post a link to your sales page or your offers or this sort of thing. And people will just think, oh, well, I'll just put it in. And it's like, if it's almost like maybe I can sneak this in under the radar. And it never happens because either A, the community leader or the host or the community manager is going to see it. They have to deal with it. So then you are then that person that is making more work for them, which we don't like. But then also everybody else sees it. And then you become sort of, it's like, oh, like you're trying, and especially if it's repeatedly. Like if you're repeatedly dropping links or you just happen to put this in, people get annoyed. And normally what will happen is, and I love that your community is already doing this, like there's like self-regulation. If you can get like, if having it so that community members are policing other community members is amazing. That means like you've got like a tight knit. So it's like if if somebody's being a little bit rude or somebody isn't being understanding, and if somebody else, like a community member comes in and says, hey, like here, this is the problem someone's talking about, but maybe we should be a little bit more respectful of XYZ. That's amazing. And that really is a sign that people care, because that's the thing is if as a community member, if I go in and say something to somebody else, it's because I care. I'm trying to like maintain the integrity of the community as a whole. And normally that's what the community manager does. But if you've got your community members doing that, so I think that's actually another thing you can do as well. Like as a community member, if you see something that you don't like, there's two ways that you can approach it. There's the more direct approach, you can just comment and say, hey, actually, we don't do that kind of thing. Like, for example, if there's a link, hey, like, can you remove your link because we don't post links here? Here's the guidelines. So it's like you're kind of like a mini community manager. If you're not comfortable with that and you don't like the confrontation of it, just message the community manager or message the team and say, hey, here's a link. This person did this. Doesn't really seem appropriate. And then what happens in that situation is, you've helped the community manager deal with it faster, but also it shows that you care. And then, for example, from the perspective of the team, they're going to appreciate you so much. So I think that's another thing that you can do when you're in the community. Make the team and the host and the community manager's lives easier. Don't make more work for them. So what does that look like? So I mean, for example, like pointing out situations that maybe need to be handled, that really helps, like super appreciated. Adding value. So like answering other people's questions, jumping in and adding support. That goes a really long way, and people notice it. Like the team will notice it. And then also like adding things that will help either the other members or the team. So I know that for myself, actually, one thing that I did last year when I joined another program for Selena Sue, she does like publicity and marketing and media. And so I went in and we were in a Facebook group, and it felt like, because like with Facebook, sometimes it can get a little bit messy because it moves around a lot. And I wanted like a roadmap. I wanted to like see what the main posts were and to have it kind of all organized. And so I just made a roadmap. I made a Google Doc. I linked it up. I wrote a post and I said, hey guys, like I was finding it a little bit overwhelming sometimes because I couldn't find the main post. So I went through, I found them. I put the links in. Here you go. I hope it helps. And like
I bet they love that.
This is the thing. And now I'm helping her with her community. So like a year and a half later, this is the thing as well. Like I think there's multiple levels of this. So it's getting value for yourself from the course or the program that you've signed up for. So just getting that value to help yourself with whatever kind of problem or the solution that you're looking for. But also it's building relationships with people, and especially like building relationships with the host. Like if you make their life easier, they notice. I mean, it's gotten me 2 jobs now. So I mean, there's something to it, right? But the thing is though, it's authentic. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do this so that I can get their attention and then get a job. Like that's not what it is. It's literally, this was difficult for me. This would make it easier for me. I bet this would work for other people. I'm going to share it. And so by sharing that, it makes it, and that's the thing. So tons of people are commenting, oh my God, this is so helpful. The host, Selena, like, oh, this is really useful. Thank you so much for doing it. And so it really does go a long way. So I think, as a community member, what you can do is just sit back and think about all of the things that maybe you struggle with, that maybe aren't as easy as you would like, and see if you can figure out a solution. And if you can, share the solution and just put it into the community, because you're adding value to not just the members, but the hosts. And that, like, imagine if everybody took 15 minutes a week and did that.
Like, it would certainly make things a lot easier for me.
Right?
But I want to come back to a different question here, though, because this is something I feel challenged on personally, because number one is I don't want my members to come into a community and feel like they're being marketed to by other members. That's not the intention.
Right.
But the reverse of that is I really do want my members to work together. And if there is someone suited in the group that can actually help someone else, like I want that to happen. Like I want to liaise that. So I feel this paradox where it's like, on one hand, don't pitch each other or make each other uncomfortable, of course. And then on the other side of things, I do actually want you guys to work together. And honestly, that is the intention of a lot of people when they join a community, is to grow their business or have more come in. So how do you balance that? Or as someone coming into a community, and I'll ask this as a direct question, as someone coming into a community, how do you achieve those things then where you are generating new business or working with new members?
Okay, I think that there's a couple things. So the first thing is context. If you are randomly posting about your business or randomly just dropping it into conversations where it doesn't make sense, that's a no-go. Like that's it. It's like, why are you always talking about your business, even though right now we're talking about cycling, right? Like it needs to be in context. So when somebody asks a specific question, and you answer the questions. You add a lot of value first, and then you can just, there's like a gray line. So you can just drop a link and say like, hey, like this is actually something that I help people with. Here's a link for more info. Or actually, here's something that I'm in a community. It's a free community. It's on Facebook. It's for entrepreneurs. And I was actually talking about finding a VA, which I think you're going to love this. So like I was, my first taste of having a VA was with Fancy Hands. And it was like, I didn't like the idea of like just random people, little small tasks. It didn't really feel like it was helping me like actually accomplish much. And so I kind of vented and I went into this community. I was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with finding a VA. Like, how can I go about this? I really feel like I'm at that point where I need some assistance. And I wrote all my complaints down. I just put it all in there and I'm asking for help. Now, in the back of my mind, all these people are amazing entrepreneurs. So I really value their opinions and their advice. And so I started getting feedback. A couple people just gave some small suggestions. One person had written an ultimate guide on it. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to read that. And then there was one person and she came in and she's a VA. But what she did was she didn't say, I'm a VA and I'm amazing and I can, you can work with me. She dropped it like it was hot. She basically answered my question, went 5 steps forward in terms of the next questions that I'll probably need to ask or think about in the future. And just was like, this is what I do with my clients. Notice how she's not saying, hire me. She's just saying, this is what I do with my clients. Boom, 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 boom. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And I read it.
I need that mic drop effect again. Because that is a really interesting way. So it comes back to what you said earlier, being helpful, but then strategic with that first line. Like that's not intimidating or hire me. It's actually useful. Did you hire her?
I did. Yay! So, I mean, this is the thing, right? And it's funny because initially it took me, it was like she planted the seed because I didn't hire her right away. I tried with the Fancy Hands and the ultimate guide and and I kept thinking about her. I was like, God, she sounds like a unicorn. Like she just sounds so like good at what she does and organized, and she has a really great sense of humor. And I was like, and I know her. So she planted the seed. And so, for example, in your case, if you've got this curated community, right? So that already makes it much more likely that I'd want to hire somebody from a curated group. But when somebody helps you without asking for anything in return, it like pulls you in because it's not pushing, right? Because think of it, like if I'm pulling a rope, the other person has to pull back. But if I'm leaning it, it's like, oh, okay. And
completely agree. It's
right?
attractive and it's contagious, and it also gets in under the blinkers a little bit, like you've said. The reciprocation comes in. All right, guys, I am so sorry. We've just had a technical issue on Confessions of a Business Owner at such a critical time, Diana. It was such a good thing we were getting into about self-promotion. So what we're going to do is we're just going to repick this conversation right back up, and we're going to continue on with talking about how, in your example, when someone was talking about VA services here, how it was being helpful and giving a taste of what it would be like to work with that person that is just so, so powerful. So we know you've hired this person on the back of it and they got through on there, which is just fantastic. But what else do you feel in this situation?
Yeah, I think that because here's the thing too, and this applies to community, pretty much applies to anything related to business where you're working with people, is ultimately you have to think about how the other person is going to feel. So imagine if this person had just come into the thread and said, hey, I'm a VA. I could totally help you. Here's my website. How does that make me feel? It kind of makes me feel like, okay, you're just looking to make some money. You haven't really offered any help. Can you actually answer my question? Are you actually a good fit for me? So it brings up a lot of questions for me. Whereas when she dropped it like it was like crazy town, like just like the thing that she showed me was she understood my situation perfectly. She actually went 3 or 4 steps further and said, hey, this is what you're actually going to need to think of in like a month or something. So she was like anticipating things, being proactive. And also just it was huge. Like there was this massive comment. And so it wasn't just like, hey, I'd love to work with you. Here's my details. It's like thought. She took time. She actually cares. Like it really demonstrated, like I felt like, ooh, this is what it would be like working with her. She's proactive. She thinks. She's got experience. She's really funny. And so for me, that really planted the seed. And it was like, oh, like I'm gonna explore this. I creeped her website. I reached out to her. We got on a call. So it was that attraction factor of just pulling people in. And so in terms of like, how can you apply this when you're in a community, is just forget about promoting yourself and just show people that you're like, essentially just show people you're a badass. Like what you do, you're amazing. And you just give it. Just give it. And then people will be like, damn, she knows what she's talking about. Maybe she can help me. Then they'll start creeping your Facebook, your website, and you'll attract them. And so I think that if people kind of get rid of it's like a lack mentality versus like a growth mentality. I think this idea of, it's going to come. Just do your thing and the clients are going to come, or the work is going to come. I think that really does apply with community as well, like when you're a member of it.
I really want to even add something onto that. I think I'm going to call it the Diana filter, but like act like you're at a wedding. I think that's, if you acted like you're at a wedding and someone said, oh, look, I'm having all these challenges with the VA and everything like that, there is no chance I would sit there and go, oh, here's the link to my website, check it out.
Here's my business card. Right? That is such a good point. What would you do? It's like the wedding hypothesis. Like, what would you do at a wedding? You would help them a little bit. You would offer them advice. And then if they're like, wow, like you're amazing at this. And you say, oh, actually it's what I do. And you don't even say anything else. And they're like, oh, what's your website? Maybe we can connect. Maybe I'd like to, take this conversation further. So it's almost like, what is it? Like with dating or like relationships, it's like when somebody is showing, it's not disinterest, but it's like this idea of like, okay, I can help you. I'm going to talk with you, this sort of thing. But you know what? It's not make or break. It's not do or die. It's like, okay. And then like this nonchalant sort of approach to it, that is way more attractive in relationships, in business, with everything, because also it's not desperate. Because the last thing you want is someone to feel like you're desperate to work with them or desperate for you to like be hired, this sort of thing. So I think that that is something that, is super important.
Yeah, I would agree. And I want to almost consider that. So let's say you do this, you be helpful, and someone comes to, let's say they are interested in your service or your VA service or product or whatever it is. Something that drives me up the wall though is that people aren't prepared to make it easy for other people to work with them. They put a barrier up between getting started. So I wanted to know if you've seen anything, and you've already mentioned one with like having a Calendly or schedule type service to book in conversations, which I think is a really good one. But do you think it's okay to have like a landing page ready for someone if they are interested in working with you in some way, shape or form?
Yeah, like what I would say, like a couple things. So like the first thing that I always recommend is, especially if the community is on Facebook, like update your profile. So this is something a lot of people don't do, but like on your profile, underneath your photo is this space, and it's actually like your about section. And a lot of people leave it blank, so there's nothing there. But you can just create like a small little blurb saying like who you help and how, and a link to your website. And this is the thing.
I've got to click on mine right now. I just need to know.
Let's check it, Charlie. If you don't,
mine's blank.
Oh my God. Okay. This is like the biggest. Okay. This is a perfect example. That is like high end real estate right there. Because what's going to happen is whenever you're in a community and you're being super helpful and everything is amazing, they're going to click on your profile. And it's like, well, what does he do? Who does he work with? How does he help people? They're going to look around and they're not going to find it, or they're going to have to dig. So that right there, you have to change that to like today.
Yeah.
I'm going to be checking.
Do you know what? It actually annoys me when I have to be a detective to work out what people do online. Like, I want you
Exactly.
to make it easy for me to understand when I'm, what do they call it?
Exactly.
Face stalking you out or whatever. It's
Yeah, it's like well, I say creeping, which sounds really creepy, but it's kind of what we're doing. Because it's like, oh, Charlie, what are you? Because I kind of like, well, for example, when I saw your podcast, I was like, all right, I'm going to creep you around a little bit. And so I'm like, you go on their Facebook, you look for the about section, which there wasn't any, but then like you might look at pictures and because it like you learn a little bit about the person. So it's like you learn that, for example, you're a cyclist, like it makes it easier to have a conversation with someone. So if you are in a community that's on Facebook, even if you're not, like update that. That's like huge. That's a game changer right there. Um, Having a Calendly link is amazing because it gets rid of the ping pong. Because imagine you message someone, you're like, hey, let's get on the call. Okay, sure. What time zone are you in? Oh, well, I'm in Australia. Well, I'm in Spain. Oh my God, like the time difference and just back and forth, it's a pain in the butt. So have a Calendly link or some sort of scheduler, send a link. That's amazing. In terms of landing page, I don't know. Like I would say I would much rather get on a call with someone and have like a conversation, a really quick one, than just a landing page because again, like how is that person going to feel? If they go to a landing page, it's just for everyone. It's not special. Like this sort of thing. I think that you want to make people feel special and taken care of, especially if it's going to be like you're providing a service where you're going to be working with them or taking care of them. But I mean, for example, if you have something to offer, you can create a landing page that's specific for that like audience, I guess. So for example, like when you go on podcasts, it's like creating a landing page that's specific for that podcast so that it's like you're giving a specific gift for a specific group of people. It's not just for everyone because how does that make you feel? It's like, oh, well, it's special. It's just for me.
So to go
So
further to
yeah,
that, is it okay to have a special offer for people you're in a community with? So for instance, if let's say we've joined a drink bottle community, as it's been topical for this, and we started talking together and I go, well, since you're a fellow drink bottle owner, you get 10% off. Is it okay to do things like that or I suppose, look after the crew?
it's going to depend because even like right now, like my body's like, I don't know,
It
but
feels a bit
there's a reason.
gross.
It feels a little bit like it depends. And here's the thing. If you're going to do something that's just for a community, reach out to the host and ask them. So for example, if I'm in your community and I want to do something like that, I'm going to reach out to you and say, hey, Charlie, I love your community. Be very specific. This is the thing too, like you can have templates for when you're reaching out to people, but the key is that they have to have something very specific and personal within the template. So you can have like the structure the same, but you have to make something different. So it's not just like a copy paste, right? So like I could message you and say, hey, I'm really loving the association. This is fantastic. I really love this conversation that happened here. And then like very specific, or I love that you did this. This really helped me. This is how I'm, applying it to my business. I had a question. I'd really like to offer some value to the community. This is what I do. And I thought this would be a great way to kind of, offer value to the other members. But I wanted to check with you first to make sure it's okay. Would this be okay with you? Or would there be something that would be better or more valuable for like the fellow members? Like, for example, how would you feel if one of your members sent you that message?
Yeah, I'm sold. I would have already done it.
Exactly. This is the thing because it's psychological, right? If I go ahead and I do something and I post it in the community and then the host is just seeing it for the first time, they could maybe not like it. Maybe they feel like, oh, well, I'm kind of out of the loop or there's questions, right? There's doubt. But when you reach out to the host, you are actually showing respect to them and their community. You're showing that you're taking time, that you care, but also notice how at the end, it's like, this is what I'm thinking about doing, but if you have a better idea or there's something that would be better for the community, please let me know. So it's like you're opening up possibilities. And so maybe they're busy. And like, for example, for you, imagine you like the idea. You don't want to spend time thinking of a different idea. You're going to reply, this is great. Thank you so much for reaching out. Green light, go ahead. And so I think that doing that, taking the time to ask the host whenever there's something that you're not sure about, if it's okay or not, do it. because they're not going to be mad at you for reaching out and asking. They're maybe going to be a little bit frustrated if you do something and you don't really consult them. That's really the only time that, you know, anything can happen in the sense of like, you know, actually, we don't really like this. Can you remove your post? Right? You eliminate that by reaching out in advance.
Yeah, I have to admit, if I found a landing page on the internet that was a special for association members and I didn't know about it, I would think that's a bit creepy and probably ask for it to be removed. But if someone asked me beforehand and said, look, I'd really love to do a special for people that, you know, within the community and for the community members, I'd be all for it and probably even share it or endorse it, which I think would make it go even further. So it's definitely worth considering in those options from there.
And that's the thing too, like what you just said, it takes your idea and multiplies it. Because if the host of the community is then promoting it or mentions it or tweets it or whatever, that adds momentum to what you're doing. And so it's not just, you know, just not just an idea that you have, it then becomes something that they're backing up, and that like people will then trust it even that more. Because I imagine if, you know, somebody posts this in the community and then you go and comment and you say, wow, this is fantastic, thanks so much for, you know, for sharing this. This is also a very good point as well. So imagine you message the host, they give you the green light, you go and post it, send them another message with a link to the post and say, hey, I just shared it, really excited, I hope that, you know, this proves useful for the community. You don't ask them to do anything, but 9 times out of 10, they're going to click on the link, they're going to go over, they're going to like it, they're going to comment on it, or they're going to do something, which then shows everybody else in the community that they're condoning it or that it's okay. So there's no question. I think that's a really good point as well. Eliminate doubt and question. And so, for example, when you post your offer in the thread, you could say, hey, I reached out to Charlie and, you know, I wanted to offer some value to the community and this is what we're going to do. So even just mentioning that you reached out to Charlie then puts everybody else's mind at ease because, oh, Charlie's he's in the loop. He knows what's happening or he knows what's going on. So there's just so many like small things you can do to eliminate doubt and questions, because doubt and questions do not make people feel confident. It's like doubt and questions. We don't want that. That's what you want to avoid.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in a lot of circumstances, looking at this, like what I want for my community members the most is for them to succeed. Like, honestly, that's what I'm trying to create is an environment where they can get results. I'm not the gatekeeper, policeman, or person trying to stop that from happening, or the person in the way of you getting more customers or anything like that. But what I really enjoy about your approach to things here is like the wedding rule, flat out, should just be a filter on everything. Wouldn't do it at a wedding, don't do it here.
I love it.
Yeah, well, it's like that domino. It just seems to eliminate a lot of these things, but you certainly can be more strategic with so many of the things you've spoken about. I just want to recap them quickly because I think there's a lot of gold nuggets across this thing. So number one is like get involved with commentating on other people's things and what's happening in other people's world. I really do think that's such an awesome one. Number two is understand the guidelines and what is and isn't allowed in the group. And if they don't have guidelines, reach out to the person that's in control and maybe even offer to write them guidelines for new people. And you get some little wins there. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge.
Boom.
Yeah. Three, don't self-promote. Be helpful. Like actually, it's fine to, you know, get work out of that or show people what you do, but don't just be, you know, throwing the, here's my link, like really do create an environment where you can demonstrate what it's like to be a client with that person. I think that's a really, really important lesson. Get involved in community activities, whether it's group calls, in-person meetups, like what we do in the association. Like there's so many things to get involved in, like actively participate and create those bonds. And then the other one I really loved is the uncommon commonalities of like, are you a cyclist? Are you into fishing? Do you like dancing? Maybe you like Suits or some sort of TV show that people seem to congregate around. Like, there's a ton of them that would link more members up than they probably realize. So I think that's so, so cool. Now, Diana, I'm going to be wrapping this one up because this is being just such a value-packed episode once again. So guys, if you would like to know more about Diana and what she does with communities, please head over to dianatower.com. And Diana has been very generous and even created a landing page to get some downloads on running a great community and engaging a great community, which is dianatower.com/Charlie, CHARLEY. You can get some goodies there. But I just want to say a massive thank you to you, Diana. This has been an awesome 3-part series, which I think has covered so many great things. Is there any final words or final things you would love to share with people so that they can, I suppose, get more out of a community or get more from you?
Well, I would say that I think essentially anything related to business or community or whatever you're doing, I think the question really should be like, take a step back and just say, how is this going to make somebody feel? And I know it's really funny because, with everything that I do, like it's very strategic, but the strategy is the emotions that you're triggering or that you're getting people to feel. And so if you know how people want to feel and you can actually make them feel that way, it just helps you in so many ways. I think you can't even really pinpoint how much that's going to impact your life, your business, the relationships you form. But I think that if people just took a moment, to just say, like, if you're commenting in a community, how is this going to make people feel? If you're sending a message to the host of a community, how is this going to make them feel? Is this going to, for example, this is another good thing too, is save people time. Like, don't put the onus on them. You do the lead work, you make them feel amazing, and just make it like a yes or no, right? So make things easy for other people. And I think that's it. Just, how people feel, I think, is really underestimated. People don't talk about it. People don't really kind of look at that, but it really is kind of the essence with business, because if you're making your clients feel amazing, it's a win-win.
Absolutely. And I love that final word from Diana there. I think it's so important. Like, make someone's day, guys, and you can have all the difference in the world. So that's it for this episode of Confessions of a Business Owner. Thank you once again, Diana. Just so thrilled to have you on for this trifecta of episodes.
Thank you so much for having me.